What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Red and Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn. We got a great show planned for you guys this Friday evening. Before I toss it over to Matt, if you are tuning in on Twitter, head over to youtube.com/49ers Hive. It is scrolling across the bottom of your screen. Join from there so we can see and interact with your comments. We're not ignoring you on Twitter. We just can't see them. So youtube.com/49ers Hive. If you want to make your voice heard, go there, hit like, hit subscribe while you're there. And somebody, I don't know who, but somebody will be delivering a bag of cash to your front door, I am told, if you do hit like and subscribe. Now that I got all that out, Matt, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good, Zach. Just another weekend of preseason football. Kind of looking around the league, just peeking in on people like Bryce Young, see what he's doing. Look at the Atlanta Falcons and see how they're doing. Kind of trying to inform some of my fantasy picks coming up. Maybe thinking about throwing my hat in for a little Bijan Robinson. Maybe a little flex position there. In all seriousness, I'm just starved for 49ers football and. All of the BS on Twitter, X notwithstanding, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's game, and that's what we're here for. So let's jump into the preview.
Yeah, man, I'm just happy. I'm happy we're here. Preview shows, recap shows. Even though last week didn't go as well as we had hoped, but that's what's so great about football. You go right back to the drawing board and go again next week, see what you can do. We're gonna get right into it this week. The 49ers play, obviously, the Denver Broncos, first game of the year at Levi Stadium. It was announced earlier this week that Sam Darnold will get the first half and Trey Lance will get the second half. It's not a 49ers show if we're not talking about quarterbacks, so let's just get it out of the way, Matt. Does this mean anything to you as far as who's getting what half and what do you take out of this, if anything? Because I've seen people debating on X as to what it means.
Honestly, at this point, it's been made clear that Brock Purdy is going to be the starter. So this is just a battle for the number 2. And we saw Trey Lance go with the 2s last week and Darnold with the 3s. I think this is a little bit of a switch up. Darnold looked pretty good against some bad competition. So I think it's just one of those things. And this is something that I said was going to happen, right? That if Lance didn't pull away and didn't, make himself the clear number 2, that it would probably be, Sam Darnold out there before he was. Now, I know Kyle came out and said that maybe the starters play like a series or 2, but for all intents and purposes, it's going to be Sam Darnold for most of the first half, Trey Lance coming out in the second half. And so it just makes it clear to me that the number 2 spot still very much up for grabs. And I think it's a ceiling versus, a high ceiling versus a high floor guy. The Trey Lance, if all of you watched the QB school video, which I highly recommend, I think that JT O'Sullivan does a great job of breaking out tape and is critical of the whole offense and not just, the person that is the focus. There was critique of the offensive line. There was critique of receivers and tight ends, critique of Kyle Shanahan's play calling. He went wild. There was a play where 2 tight ends ran the same route right next to each other, and he just had a field day with it. I just think that at this point, we know that Brock Purdy's the starter. Trey Lance is a little bit timid. Even though he has the higher ceiling, the high physical tools, he's not pulling the trigger on things. Something is holding him back. And it's a question of, do the 49ers, if something for whatever reason happens to Brock Purdy, do the 49ers have the runway to send Trey Lance out there to be timid, to potentially make mistakes? Or do they have to go with the 6-year pro who is definitely going to make mistakes, but by all appearances looks a little bit more comfortable and will at least pull the trigger on some of those throws, including that. He had that beautiful 37-yard throw down the sideline. I think it was to Conley. Was it Conley?
Bell.
I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. Ronnie Bell. Excuse me. It's you have to debate that. Right? Do you see what you have in Trey Lance? If something happens to Brock Purdy, like I said, hopefully nothing does, but we've been on this, team on this bandwagon too long to know that, anything's a given. Do you go with the high ceiling guy, or do you go with the guy who can perhaps not lose you games? It sounds weird to say that about Sam Darnold because he's IC Ghost guys and he's not really good per se, but he seems to be more confident in himself than Trey Lance. So that's kind of what we're debating here.
Yeah, my whole question with Sam Darnold is he's clearly talented, right? He's clearly got the physical makeup of an NFL quarterback. How much of his failures was attributed to just being a product of his environment? Like looking back on the teams he was with, they weren't good teams. They were not teams that were going to the playoffs, and he just was not, he was the missing piece of the court. No, these were bad teams, bad coaching staffs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did he not play with Adam Gase? Like, was that not one of his first coaching staffs that he was offensive systems he was running? I'm pretty sure it was Adam Gase. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, Adam Gase, I think was his first. I don't know, but he follows one of those same things that is similar to what happened to Alex Smith, where it's like you have 4 or 5 coaches, 4 or 5 coordinators in your first couple of years in the league, so maybe that hinders your development a little bit. One could say the same thing about Zach Wilson, who I haven't really paid attention to the Jets, but we're all watching like Hard Knocks or whatever. Seems like Zach Wilson is learning a lot from Aaron Rodgers and finally has a steady hand with Robert Saleh there. But even Nathaniel Hackett, I believe, is new this year because he was coaching Denver last year. So another coordinator. You just wonder how much of this is the coaches switching and not getting we talked about quarterback coaches with Trey Lance. Oh, he has this guy, but he's not allowed to work with this guy, so he's got to work with another guy or whatever. And you wonder if that hinders the development too. I can definitely tell you that head coach is moving and offensive coordinators moving and moving to a new team. Those all impact how you feel. I'm not going to take away anything from the mistakes that Darnold's made because I definitely think that he has moments where he's just oblivious, and I wasn't super high on him coming out of USC, but if anybody's going to get the most out of him, it's going to be the same guy who, despite what people will say on Twitter and on socials or whatever, does typically tend to get the most out of his quarterbacks, whoever that may be. Got the most out of Matt Schaub, got the most out of Matt Ryan. I mean, Matt Ryan won MVP with Shanahan as his offensive coordinator, right? He got the most out of Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll see what Jimmy Garoppolo is with the Raiders, but you're asking a lot of Shanahan to overcome a lot of Darnold's limitations, but if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be him. I don't know. It's hard to say what Darnold actually is, just like it's hard to say what Lance actually is, and I think this is why they're doing the flip-flop back and forth.
Yeah. So, again, it really is tough, and I think this could be a system that if for some reason Sam Darnold did have to come in and play, I'm not going to say he's going to be a all-pro quarterback, but no. I think he would look like a different quarterback under Kyle Shanahan. I mean, just having teammates alone, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, I mean, he's never had that. So, and look, to be fair, Trey hasn't had that since he's been playing these regular season games either. So maybe we would see a different Trey Lance if we saw him with the starters, and maybe we would see a different Brock Purdy if we saw him with the second and third team players as well. But so is life, such be life, or whatever the saying is. Like, that's just how things are. That's how the cookie crumbles. And maybe that's not what we're going to see. So we'll see how it is. But I like the point that you brought up earlier, Matt, is what is the purpose of a backup quarterback? Is it to have somebody with a high floor that if they have to go in, you're not automatically losing games until your starter comes back? Or is it the purpose to have a guy there who you really don't know what the floor is, and you also really don't know what the ceiling is, but you think he could elevate you to a higher ceiling? I think there's a good argument to be made. You want the higher floor because it's more of an insurance policy than an investment, in my opinion, but we'll see how things shape out.
Shout outs to Mike, by the way. Thank you for shouting us out. We really appreciate it.
Yes,
before we move on from, the Sam Darnold, the Trey Lance thing, I just want to get one thing clear. I always root for Trey Lance. I bought a Vapor Elite. Listen, nobody's more on board with the Trey Lance thing, but with the firm confirmation, as firm as we're going to get, really, of Brock Purdy through actions, through words, through the Albert Breer article, through everything else, that Brock Purdy being the starter for the San Francisco 49ers starting the season, I think that the quarterback debate is getting a little old. I really am. I'm tired of it. We're fighting for number 2. And as I said, and as Zach talked about, it's high ceiling maybe versus high floor. And the best thing for Trey Lance to be able to develop is to play. But quite frankly, the 49ers aren't going to allow him to play. And with this roster, the way that it's constructed, can't afford to let him play. They can't afford to sit there and babysit him if he needs to come in. And as much as that sucks, and I hate that for Trey, I think the best thing for him and for the team, honestly, would probably be to carry Sam Darnold as the backup, Brandon Allen as the third, and to move Trey Lance. Just because if he's ever going to have a shot, it's going to need to be somewhere else. I don't think Trey Lance is ever going to be something for the 49ers. And people don't want to hear that. And people are going to get mad. And they're, going to throw stuff out because they all have their horse in the race. I'm just calling it like I see it. The moment that the team made clear that Brock Purdy was not going to lose his job unless he had an absolute meltdown, including, after the practice with the Raiders where he had 4 picks in
unless
practice.
Unless he literally melted down.
Literally melts down. I mean, like an asteroid comes close to him and he literally melts into goo. He's going to be the starter. That could potentially change if he plays absolutely horrendously, but people will be out there criticizing Kyle Shanahan. He can't develop quarterbacks. He picks terrible quarterbacks. He does blah, 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 blah. The last 4 seasons, Kyle Shanahan, I believe, is 42-24 with 3 NFC championship appearances and a Super Bowl appearance. Okay. The dude knows what he's doing. The dude is a good coach. And if he feels that Brock Purdy is the best quarterback on the roster, it's probably because he's the best quarterback on the roster. And I know people will point out, oh, well, Purdy wasn't, the guy last year. And if Jimmy doesn't get hurt, we don't see him. Sure, that's all circumstance. But that was Purdy getting like 5 reps in practice. And there's a lot of good practice players, right? Brock Purdy forced the 49ers' hands and really changed Kyle Shanahan's opinion based on the games that they played. Whether that's right or wrong, that's the situation as it is. So the hand-wringing over Trey Lance getting in and how it's not fair and blah, blah, blah. Listen, life isn't fair, okay? Life isn't fair. Unfortunately, kids get cancer. People lose loved ones. Dogs have to pass away. All this bad stuff happens to great people. Bad people, are able to thrive underneath the way that life is. Life's not fair, okay? NFL is a business at the end of the day. When the team made it clear that Brock Purdy was the starting quarterback, that's where all the conversation needed to shift over to other things, right? Honestly, where's Nick Bosa? Where's Nick Bosa? Is Parag magic wearing off and wearing thin? Are we potentially going to lose the best player on the team because Parag wants to goose up another team-friendly contract when really what he should be doing is just paying Bosa? Because now we're going into week 2 of the preseason. Right? It might not necessarily matter because Nick Bosa stays in shape, but you want to get him in there and taking hits and building those calluses and getting ready for the season. Tail is old as time. A guy holds out, doesn't come to camp, even in good shape, right? Not prepared or in football shape, gets the big contract, gets hurt. I don't want that for Nick Bosa. I don't want that for this team. So while everybody online is sitting there and whining and crying about the best quarterback for their position, I'm on to the real shit. Where is Nick Bosa? How is the offensive line going to hold up? Is this team going to come out and play, or are they going to shit the bed again like they did against the Las Vegas Raiders? That's what I care about. So all of you people out there crying about Trey Lance, it is what it is, guys. It's time to move on.
Been a minute since a Matt rant. I love it. All right. Yeah, and just to add on there real quick, John Lynch had previously said when asked, when would you be worried if Nick Bosa hasn't, this whole contract situation hasn't.
Oh, did we lose you?
Can you hear me? Am I good?
Yep, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. He had been previously asked, when should we be worried if the contract situation isn't dealt with? And he said about 3 weeks from the season. Well, that's Sunday. Sunday is 3 weeks from when the season starts. So according to our own general manager, this is when we should start to worry. So they better get it done. I mean, I assume Bosa is waiting for Chris Jones to get his extension. That way he gets $1 more than Chris Jones, because that's apparently how these things go. But I mean, he can't hold out into the season, right, Matt? Like, doesn't under the new CBA, wouldn't he lose a year towards his contract? Is that correct? Do you know?
There is a certain point if he holds out for the entire season, he would lose out on a year of seniority, which affects something like a year of like service time almost, which would affect something down the line. But like, it's not like his contract would just roll over. It would still it would still expire, but it's kind of weird to even be talking to that point. Like, listen, what are they what are they asking you for? What do you actually want to give? And meet, like, dude, if you have to, 51.49, don't even meet in the middle. Just give a little.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, if anybody's worth it, we talk about, like I said, I've been watching Hard Knocks, and they talked about the extension that they gave Quinton Williams, who's not nearly the talent in the same draft, not nearly the talent that Bosa was. They gave him a big money deal, but even Saleh's like, dude, it's not about how much money you give, it's who you give the money to. And he's like, if you were going to give somebody that money, you would why not give the money to the dude that doesn't get in trouble outside of the facility, that is working his ass off day in and day out,
Right.
and somebody who is going to show up ready to play and has a legit love for the game, and honestly is one of the best defensive players in the last 5 years, 6 years, right? He's probably the best defensive end in the NFL right now.
Reigning
and you can't
MVP.
Reigning defensive player of the year. You can't find a way to pay that guy and give him what he wants. I'm not saying like throw him quarterback level money like a Patrick Mahomes deal and overexpose the team, but some of this cute shit that the team likes to do with contracts, I don't think that's going to play here, because I think if anybody knows, Nick Bosa is going to know his value.
Yeah.
So it's time to stop playing games. And at the end of the day, I think if it has to come from up top, it has to come up from up top. Jed York, if it has to come from John Lynch, it comes to John Lynch. They need to go to Prague and be like, all right, cut the bullshit. Let's get it done.
Yeah. So couple questions. Is he on his 5th year? Yep. And per NBC New York, this is just the first Google link that came up. Drafted or undrafted players with rookie contracts could hold out and be fined $40,000 per day, but this does not apply to 5th-year option players of their rookie deal who are subject to a $50,000 per day fine as soon as training camp opens up in July. But the team can waive
all of that. Exactly.
So, which I'm sure they will. So it's almost like he's like, it's not going to matter anyway. Like once I get my money, and at the end of the day, we're talking like 150 million, probably like 50 grand a day. Even if they don't waive it, it's probably peanuts. So I'm concerned if this contract doesn't get done within the next week or so. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that it does get done. Just real quick, the last thing I want to talk about for quarterbacks before we move on to tomorrow evening's game, and I shared this in the chat earlier, a couple of quotes from Brandon Allen that kind of caught my eye, particularly when talking about Trey Lance. And let me change this. Okay. This is from a Matt Mayoko article. And, when he was asked about why he came here, he said, when we looked around at the overall team, coach's offense, I think it's probably going to be the best fit for me. I'm just trying to show that I can play in the system and that I belong. Later, let's see, where is it? Said, I don't worry about the reps that I'm given. I've been at number 3 early in my career. There were a lot of days where I didn't get reps, so I know I have to produce. But this quote is what really stood out to me. If you can play within the system and use that talent around you, those are the biggest things. We're referring to the Kyle Shanahan offense. The offense is designed to get guys open. So your biggest job is to put the ball where it needs to go against the right coverage with accuracy. This system works well for quarterbacks who can just be accurate and play on time. Now, we saw 3 quarterbacks Sunday, versus the Raiders. And in my opinion, this applied to 2 of them. It didn't really so much apply to Trey Lance. So maybe that's where the biggest problem is coming in with Trey Lance, is something in his internal clock is not allowing him to get the ball out on time. Possibly he's not as accurate as Kyle would like him to be either. But I mean, Kyle has made Matt Schaub a Pro Bowl quarterback, Matt Ryan an MVP. He's turned Brock Purdy from Mr. Irrelevant to a diamond in the rough. People are calling him a genius for finding this kid out of Iowa State and turning him into the NFL's next big thing, a household name, basically. And Trey Lance, it's like the kid's got all the talent in the world, and he, for some reason, has not been able to put it together yet. So I don't know. Just this quote really stood out to me. I don't know if there's any thoughts you had on it, Matt. But
no, and that was what we saw on tape from the first preseason game, that in terms from snap time to throw time, Trey Lance was clearly the slowest of the 3 quarterbacks on the day. And again, I point out the JT O'Sullivan video where he just shows turn downs on wide open stuff. Like, I mean, and there was stuff where, as JT O'Sullivan termed it, wide ass open, WAO, like stuff that, there was one throw where it was a sack where there was like a dual window for Trey Lance to get a ball across the middle to Conley on a route. And he just didn't pull the trigger. So I don't want to say that Brandon Allen's throwing shade. I think he's answering a question honestly.
To be fair, that was before too. It was like weeks before.
Yeah. But with hindsight in mind, and it's always 2020 when you look at the tape, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's kind of, yeah, that makes sense that Trey Lance would be struggling a little bit based on the tape, and maybe you think, oh, that's like throwing shade. I don't think that teammates are trying to dunk on anybody else, but you see it. So you want to see Trey Lance be a little more aggressive this week, and you're hoping that like maybe just a little bit of rust, a little bit of nerves, kind of knock the rust off or whatever. Because for all the people that want Trey Lance to be here with this team, he has to make sure that he leaves no margin for error in terms of being the backup quarterback. Because if he gets beat out by Sam Darnold, that's it, man. It's already pretty much done in terms of Trey Lance being the 49ers franchise quarterback, unless something wild happens. But if you want to see him stay on this team and potentially be able to contribute and play, then you need to hope that because if you are the number 3, then, you can't really blame that on, oh, he doesn't get playing time. Oh, it's this and that. Oh, whatever. It's just going to fall back to the life isn't fair thing. And, I got a very tiny violin in the back, right? That we can play for that. And not necessarily for Trey Lance, who I genuinely feel bad for, but just for the people that so blindly want Trey Lance to play that's all they talk about. And people like, our boy Ted, who's throwing shade at Brock Purdy for no reason. And I asked him, I'm like, hey man, like why all the Brock Purdy hate? He's like, no, I like Brock. But then he'll call Brock mid, and he'll call him propped Purdy, and he'll say all this stuff. And there's other people that are doing the same thing. And it's because that they have a horse in the race. Because again, like I always say, they're worried about the nameplate on the back of the jersey rather than what's on the front. Okay. And the team has made a decision. And every armchair quarterback out there thinks that they know better than the team. I'm not so arrogant to think that I know better than these coaches. They made the decision. Now it's got to be moving on to the next thing. But I can tell you that if Trey Lance can't separate himself even as the backup quarterback, that doesn't bode well for Trey Lance's potential to become something in the NFL. And it's going to be a hard pill for people to swallow. But, if he doesn't show improvement and quick, you better get the medicine ready.
Yeah, it really is tough to swallow. But I was thinking about something the other day, and I swear we're going to move on after quarterbacks. Please bear with us. We will move on after quarterbacks right after this. I know you guys are as sick as talking about them as we are, but why did Sam Darnold sign with the 49ers? And I know he was asked, and he gave his own answer basically about there's a lot of uncertainty with Brock's health and maybe Trey's progress as a rookie. He cleaned it up more professionally than obviously how I'm kind of butchering it here. But clearly, Matt, there's like him and his agent got together when looking at opportunities for him to sign as a free agent. And they said, well, hey, there's a shot he can start here. Maybe Brock doesn't come back fully healthy. Maybe Trey doesn't progress the way that he's hoping he will. And Sam can come in with all the talent and maybe take the starting gig from Brock Purdy if Brock Purdy, A, doesn't look healthy, or B, doesn't look like he did last year. So my last question for you, then we'll move on quarterbacks. Why do you think Sam Darnold signed here? Like realist reason, not the BS as to a great opportunity, yada yada.
Yeah, I think that when you look around the quarterback rooms, a lot of other teams had quarterbacks who were either young or they had rookies or whatever, where the team is clearly in a transitory phase, in a phase where you got to see what you have in a rookie, like Bryce Young to the Carolina Panthers. That makes sense. Justin Fields is still going to be doing his thing. You got other teams around the league. Desmond Ridder in Atlanta, they want to see what they have in him. Sam Howell was just named the starting quarterback for the Washington Commanders today. So you're actually running out of real estate with a lot of these teams. Where are you going to go? And the one thing that he looked at was, well, San Francisco, people have always said that if I could get with Kyle Shanahan, if anybody could get the most out of me, it would probably be him, and that I would fit his offense. And number two, I watched what happened against Philadelphia in that NFC Championship game. And I'm the type of dude where, I'll be ready at the moment's notice to play. They got a guy who's coming off, and they got essentially two guys actually that are coming off of season-ending injuries where they had to have surgery the past year. If they're not ready to go, that could be my best opportunity to see the field. And it could be my last opportunity in the NFL. So I don't want to go to a rebuild. I don't want to go to a place where I'm just a bridge guy who's going to get replaced at the drop of a hat. What I can do is sign a low-risk, high-reward deal to where if these guys go down, I'm going to be a good enough quarterback where with the talent in San Francisco, with the talent as the head coach, I can at least win some games and potentially continue a playoff run. I think he looks at that NFC Championship game and is going, hey, man, if I was there on that team and they could have put me in the game, we probably would have won that game, and then I'd be starting in a Super Bowl.
Yes.
So I think all of those things combined kind of informed him of what he was going to do. And then I think from the other side, I think a lot of that is Kyle knowing that it's much the same, right? Like, I mean, Sam's out there. We can sign him for a very incentive-laden, very cheap deal. And I know that with the new rule, we can carry 3 on game day with an emergency as long as we keep 3 on the 53-man roster. Man, if only I had Sam last year, we probably could have won. So I think it was a mutual kind of understanding that if you're getting down to, especially the third quarterback, if somehow Trey Lance wins, I think that they still keep Sam Darnold and Brandon Allen's the likely man out. Imagine how many teams would have the depth at quarterback to say, oh yeah, Sam Darnold, he's our third stringer. So I think it was just a mutual fit for both teams. And I think Sam Darnold knows this is like probably his last stop in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree with you. And not only last stop, but maybe I'm looking at it too positively as a fan, but last chance at really proving he can do anything, proving that he could be an NFL starter. And I'm not completely out on Sam. I don't know. I think that he's got the talent. Watching him Sunday, we just got a super chat. Thank you very much, Sean. We'll get to that right now. Watching him Sunday versus the Raiders throw deep, throw outside the numbers. I mean, it kind of got me a little excited. I hadn't seen that in a while from a 49ers quarterback. I know we saw Brock do it a little bit last year, but nearly not enough as I would like to. So if that's something that Kyle can get out of Sam Darnold a little more consistently, sign me up. Sign me up. All right, let's get to the super chat. Sean says, I'm old enough to have seen Andy Reid get fired after several NFC Championship game appearances, and a Super Bowl loss. If Kyle is wrong about this quarterback decision, why wouldn't he be fired? And real quick, this is what I feared about Kyle Shanahan. I've always said, I'm terrified we're going to be Kyle Shanahan's Eagles, and he's going to move on and find a superstar quarterback with the next team. What do you think, Matt?
Listen, Andy Reid was there for 14 years, and the year that he got fired, the team went 4-12. So it's a different situation. And by the way, Kansas City, I mean, they couldn't have dialed that phone fast enough to get him hired.
Right.
And now you've seen what he is with Kansas City. So you're old enough to see Andy Reid get fired. Does that reflect more poorly on the Philadelphia Eagles or Andy Reid? Because Andy Reid now is a multiple-time Super Bowl champion and is in the AFC Championship every year. Not that Andy Reid wasn't a good coach, just sometimes circumstances, right? A lot of those Philly teams got injured, right? Michael Vick fell off a cliff. You had, you thought, oh, maybe we'll transition over to Kevin Cobb. He wasn't the guy. Now what do? Carson Wentz injured, for Philadelphia. They get bit. Doug Peterson wins a Super Bowl, gets fired the next year, right? Who was he coaching at the time? I'll wait. Oh, Philadelphia. Maybe Jeffrey Lurie is just a very picky guy. And if he's not seeing results, he's going to move on. So,
yeah. How much of that is looking out with Mahomes as hung fat?
That's the whole thing, right? That's the whole thing. It's most of these first round quarterbacks, most of the quarterbacks in the NFL.
Oh, did I lose Matt? Or am I?
Oh, are you there, Zach? I think that's you, Zach. Anyway, most of the NFL, most of the NFL draft picks, quarterbacks, and whatever, they're busts. Only a few make it out. And at the time, Mahomes wasn't Mahomes that we thought. Mahomes was raw. Otherwise, if Mahomes coming out of college and we knew he was going to be the guy that he was today, he would have been the first overall pick. Was he? No. How many quarterbacks were drafted ahead of Patrick Mahomes, by the way?
One, right?
Mitchell Trubisky was. Right? So it's a crapshoot. And so a lot of it is luck. A lot of it is scouts and whatever. So
yeah,
it is what it is. That's all we can do and kind of go from there. But I think that if Kyle Shanahan suddenly falls off a cliff and the team starts losing, yeah, but he's made 2 straight NFC championship games.
Yeah.
So the people who want him fired obviously don't remember the Jim Tonsula and the Chip Kelly days and how when Jed York was super hands-on and they had a GM that, was kind of a red ass and that got in the way of a good coach in Jim Harbaugh, how that all fell apart.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's egos at play and not necessarily what's happening on the field. Because I guarantee you right now that the Eagles were probably in the wrong for firing Andy Reid, and the Chiefs couldn't be happier that they did it.
Yeah. And he's really, in my opinion, the only coach I would take over Kyle Shanahan. I mean, maybe there's, Belichick, Pete Carroll, maybe, but thinking long term, I can't think.
I
of
would
too
not
many other
take Pete
coaches.
Carroll over Kyle Shanahan.
I probably wouldn't, but
Definitely
I'm just thinking pedigree, and who possibly would even be in the conversation, right? The conversation probably consists of Andy Reid, Bill Belichick,
right?
Sean.
But even then, with Pete Carroll, when's the last time that he got to or won a Super Bowl? It's been like 10 years.
Yeah,
dude.
it's been like a decade. Yeah.
So when does he run out of cachet and runway?
Yeah. Also, I think Andy Reid could have won one with McNabb. I mean, he was very, very close multiple times. McNabb was talented enough, and then that team kind of just fell apart. And then he also had a very talented team with Michael Vick. But I wouldn't say he necessarily. People, did he luck out with Mahomes? He was in playoff contention with Alex Smith as the quarterback as well. So,
dude, they had a gigantic lead on the Colts.
Where that game was insane.
Had like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and they lost.
Yeah,
because their defense shit the bed. That has nothing to do with quarterback, by the way. So you can say what you want. Again, there are 9 active coaches that have won a Super Bowl. 9. That's like a quarter of the league.
Aren't there like only 33 coaches in general that have won a Super Bowl?
Right. It's some preposterous. It's not even a high number. So, I mean, these people that are like, dismissing Kyle Shanahan. Yeah, but how many rings does he have? I mean, okay, I guess. But we talk about that all the time with people like Dan Marino. Was Dan Marino shitty because he didn't win a Super Bowl? No. Yeah. So.
Also, do you guys not remember the dark ages, the modern dark ages from like 2012, 2013 through 2017 or 2016, whatever, Kyle, Chip Kelly, Jim Tomsula, like these were bad times post Harbaugh, and Kyle came in and within 3 years technically rejuvenated the franchise, brought life back into it, made Levi's into kind of a home field advantage type area, brought playoff wins back, brought the winning culture back. And a lot of these guys are homegrown, Kittle, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Tauno Hufanga. Like a lot of these players are homegrown that likely aren't here without Kyle Shanahan. So I'm not moving off
49ers throwback put in the chat. Sean McVay has won a Super Bowl. That goes to what Zach's saying about homegrown. What are the Rams going to do now other than compete for the first pick to get Caleb Williams? Because they sold everything that they had up the river to get that Super Bowl, and fantastic, they got it.
1 year.
1 year. Now they're trash. They traded away a lot of their guys. They don't have a lot of talent. They don't have almost any draft picks. So they're going to be bad for the next 3-4 years. And Sean McVay, are we going to hear another story about him wanting to retire because he burned himself out? I mean, again, I'm for the Patriots and Steelers model of sustainability, not just throw it all in the ring for one championship. Yeah. Because all that gets you is what we experienced in the early 2000s and the 2000 teens, which is bad 49ers football. And I'd rather have the team be relevant for 15 to 20 years because they have a good head coach. I want to see Kyle Shanahan have a Mike Tomlin style run with this team. That's what I want to see.
Jedi said pre-Harbaugh was hell too. And thank you, Jedi, for sticking up for my bands. Mike Nolan out there, the suit and tie and the dapper hat.
Hey, no, Mike Nolan can go fuck himself because he got rubbed the wrong way just because Aaron Rodgers came across California cool or whatever. We could have had Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
And he was like, nah, no shade to Alex Smith because he's a super nice guy and everything. But I think it would be a little disingenuous to, say that Alex Smith had anywhere close to a career as Aaron Rodgers has had. He's had some, a good career compared to other quarterbacks of his era, maybe even better than the guy that replaced him, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah. And then the question goes into, is Aaron Rodgers if he goes to the 49ers and starts immediately? I mean, let's not forget he got to sit for 3 years behind Brett Favre, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever do it, whereas Alex Smith was thrown into the flames right away, having 5 or 6 different offensive coordinators in his first 5 or 6 years. Like it was crazy. So who knows? But yeah, fuck Mike Nolan. I agree. All right. Let's get into this show. For our Starbucks says Zach Dennis Erickson was the worst hired coach.
Tom Sula, dude. Tom Sula easily. Yeah. Dennis Erickson had multiple head coaching jobs.
Yeah.
In the NFL.
Playoffs.
No. That's that.
No, I'm thinking of
yeah, I can't think of his name right now.
How am I forgetting
Playoffs
his name?
Guy. I don't know.
Oh,
but Dennis Erickson coached in college with Miami, and then he coached in Seattle in the 90s. He had a good run with late career Warren Moon.
Jim Mora. Thank you, Jim Mora.
Jim Mora. There you go.
That's who it was. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah, Ian Sharp. Oddly enough, Rodgers can't get past the 49ers in the playoffs. I'm hoping for the ultimate universal FU to Aaron. And if they meet in the Super Bowl this year and with the Jets, he still can't get past the 49ers with Robert Saleh as head coach. I mean, it would just be world breaking, universe shattering. Yeah, thank you, NT Louis, Jim Mora. All right, let's get back to tomorrow evening's game, Matt. Give me something you are really keeping an eye on tomorrow night versus the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost is going to be effort. That team needs to come out and play with heart, with effort, with desire, and not just, I mean, they rolled over for the Raiders in the last game. And it's sometimes you expect that in the middle of the season, right? It's a lull, it's whatever, but that was their first opportunity. And it's not like they were playing superstars. It's not like superstars went through the motions or whatever. These are guys trying to make the team, and they got bullied all day long. They got dog walked. Didn't look like they wanted to be there. And that's cool. If they come out and play like that again, they're not going to be there. They're going to lose themselves a job. And, so you want to see the young guys come out and play hard and try to pay attention and just improve week over week on what they did before. So for me, effort is the number one thing that I'm looking for, especially from the guys who are on the fringe of the roster.
Yeah. For me, and Ronnie Bell, the real deal, I'd love to see Ronnie Bell repeat his performance last year. But aside from him, Deshaun Jameson, I want to see him continue to return kicks with that energy. Because Bell,
and without the flags,
please and thank you.
Without the flags,
Bell looks solid as a receiver. I mean, he was the one who caught Darnold's 37-yard pass, but he did not look comfortable returning kicks. And on the flip side, Deshaun Jameson looked really good returning kicks. Unfortunately, kept getting them called back by penalties.
And then not so good as a DB.
Not so good as a DB. He had one solid tackle, though. He had one solid tackle fighting through a pick play. But yeah, Deshaun Jameson, let's see if he can continue to return kicks. I'll go 2 in a row here, and then I'll shoot it back to you. Offensive lineman, Ilm Manning. Keep an eye on this kid. He looks like he could be, I don't want to say potential starter, but maybe backup material. Definitely a Cinderella story. Small, undersized, but he played well versus the Raiders. And Chris Forster, the 49ers, I think he's like the running game coordinator and offensive line coach, has been raving about Ilm Manning for the past week or so. So keep an eye on Ilm Manning. I believe he's number 50. Keep an eye on him. Do you have another player, Matt, that you're keeping a close eye on or something in particular?
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on 3rd-round pick Cameron Latu. Drops in the game.
Drop 2?
Including a fumble. Yeah. earning that nickname from the fan base and from what's coming out of practice is not a good thing. There are reports that, he's going to have to show a lot of improvement to maybe avoid getting cut. And it would just be another in a long line of disastrous third-round picks for the 49ers if he cannot show that he can hang on to the ball. Because he already slotted as a guy that's really going to work a lot blocking and working in the red zone just because of his size. He's not particularly nimble-footed. He's not a fast guy. And if you can't catch the ball in traffic, which is what your entire job description is going to be down in the red zone, then you really don't have a place on this team, and you're going to get replaced. You're going to get moved on from. And, I mean, we see it all the time. Some of these guys just don't work out. They get cut. They might get one or two cup of teas, a tryout here or there, but they're out of the league quickly. And I would hate to see for this young man to have his career over so quick because third round is kind of a lot to spend on a guy that you only see in camp for a couple of months. I'll do one more, and then if you want to finish this out.
Yes, sir.
Another third-round pick. I mean, my boy from Michigan, Jake Moody, got to hit those kicks. I got to see more consistency from Jake Moody when the lights are bright. And it's not even playoff time, right? Again, reports are he goes back to practice. Now he's booming them. I think he had a miss, but it was from like 61, which like at that point, you're just kind of like, all right, he missed from 61. No big deal, right? Once you get over like 55, if you miss, it's kind of like, that sucks, but that's a long ass kick, right? I can't see him missing kicks from 39 yards. That's just unacceptable. Those are gimme NFL kicks that have to be made. So him coming out and actually playing well and doing his job when the lights are on, that's something I'm looking for as well.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I saw reporters reporting that they were practicing icing the kicker in practice since that worked on Jake Moody Sunday. They iced him twice. He missed both kicks. And look, some context, the second kick was a 58-yard kick. I was not expecting him to make that kick. I think Kyle just kind of said, let's just see what he has. Let's see what my third round pick has. I'm cool with him missing that kick. The 40-yarder, that was a little more concerning to me, especially after Trey Lance driving the offense down the field with 30 seconds to go and getting the offense in position to score, and Moody misses the kick. So they were practicing icing Jake Moody in practice. Let's see if it actually worked. For me, I'm going to go with, this is tough, the last one, but probably it's either the rookie linebackers looking good, or if any other receiver will step up and separate themselves. I spoke about Ronnie Bell earlier. We saw Chris Conley looked comfortable, looked like he was running routes with accuracy and precision. Are we going to continue to see that? And maybe one of these guys could challenge Jawan Jennings for that wide receiver 3 spot. I know I'm being way too premature here, but maybe somebody can lock down a roster spot here. And just to add on here, one last quick one. Cleveland Farrell, he looked pretty good last week. I believe he got a sack. Maybe Farrell gets a little more playing time, shines a little more. It would be fantastic for the 49ers to get another Raiders castaway, turn him into a reclamation project under Coach Kursarek, and turn him into a star again. We'll see. I'm saying star kind of, air quotes, but turn him into something worth something other than just being released former first overall pick. Ian Sharp said, Kyle said the wide receiver battle is close. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, but beyond just the top guys for sure. And I don't know if we talked about it, but apparently the 49ers signed a pass rusher, Ladarius Hamilton from Green Bay today. So I don't know if he'll actually get any run this week. I think it's like kind of early, but I would expect him maybe to get some playing time next week. But yeah, definitely interested in a lot of the other position battles. And honestly, that's the stuff we should be talking about instead of, I know there's some questions in here. Leonardo came in late. We did talk about both. So it's something I'd much rather be talking about than these effing quarterbacks still.
Yeah. It never ends. Look, I've tweeted before,
never ends, dude.
Not even Joe Montana could escape a quarterback controversy with his time at the 49ers. So Trey Lance and Brock Purdy definitely aren't above a quarterback controversy.
We got Jimmy Garoppolo because of a quarterback controversy in New England that was brewing.
That's true. That is true. So if
it happens to Brady and Montana, it can happen to anybody. But I mean, at this point, it's time to just ship has sailed at least until week 1 of the regular season. So let's just move on to other things.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. I don't think we have anything else to look forward to, at least key things to look forward to. Do you want to get into our offensive defensive MVP predictions and then begin to wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that works for me, man. That works for me. Did you want to go first or do you want to let me go first? Either way, doesn't matter to me.
I don't know why my internet keeps cutting out. Sorry.
Oh,
Like my
no,
power
all
went
good.
out on Tuesday, and ever since then, it's like my internet cuts out every 5 minutes
Yeah,
for like 10
cycle your
seconds.
router, reset it, hard reset it,
All right, I'll do that after
clear
this.
that cache out.
Probably should have done
But
it before.
yeah, we can do offensive, defensive MVP final score. Why don't you go ahead and take it right off top?
Okay, sweet. I'm gonna go with defensive player prediction. I'm gonna go with Ambry Thomas. I think Ambry had a very impressive and promising first preseason game against the Raiders. I was pleased with what I heard him say in the offseason as to why his sophomore season was kind of such a downer, and that basically he came in thinking he was comfortable enough and knew everything and had an injury, and it just never progressed from there and kind of shot himself in the foot, so to speak. But he's put in the work all offseason. He looked solid Sunday against the Raiders. I know the stat sheet or the scoreboard didn't show that, but him individually looked good. I'm going to say Ambry Thomas. I think he gets a pick. Let's just, for the fun of it, let's say he gets a pick. Who do you got for defensive MVP?
I'm going to say defensive MVP. I'm going out on a limb here. Going out on a limb for him time and time again. But I'm going to say Javon Kinlaw. He didn't really show out last week.
Oof.
Still got bullied around a little bit. But I'm hoping that with his back against the wall, and believe me, his back is up against that wall, that he comes out and plays hard and shows why he belongs on this team. Because if he doesn't, that's a guy where you just look and go, yeah, I guess it might be time to move on. At the very least, they didn't pick up his 5th year, so he'll be gone after the season. But yeah, it's becoming too little too late for Javon Kinlaw. And we can talk about all of the bad 49ers draft picks in history, and he's going to have to go right up there with them if he doesn't show out.
Leonardo says, don't get me wrong, but I love the crazy quarterback talk. And if we do find our guy, Niners talk will get a little boring in the offseason.
I mean, the guy right now is found. It's Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
He's QB1.
Yeah.
And I've never seen more hype around a QB2 battle.
Yeah.
So
which leads me to my offensive player of the game prediction. Jedi says Jalen Graham, by the way, for defensive. I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid. He looks good. He looks fast out there, man. My offensive MVP prediction, Sam Darnold. He's going to get the first half with I don't know how many of the starters are going to play. Probably not that many. Brock Purdy might get a series or two, according to Kyle Shanahan. I think Sam Darnold's going to come out and look good. Push the ball down the field, look accurate, look like he's in control of the offense, and really prove why he signed here and why he deserves the number 2 spot. Who do you got?
I think I'm going to have to go with the guy who was kind of an unsung hero, but who's kind of trying to make a name for himself on this team. And that's going to be Chris Conley. I thought his routes looked good. I thought he caught the ball well. As much as I want to go with my Michigan boy, Ronnie Bell, who I feel like I don't want to jinx Ronnie Bell by saying his name too many times. And Chris Conley showed that he was smooth last week, made a lot of good plays, and, avoided mistakes. I think that gives him a leg up, especially as more of a veteran guy. But, that wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 battle is wide open. And I think that he can go a long way to securing a spot on the team if he puts forth another effort like he did against the Raiders. He was one of the few bright spots that the 49ers had, along with Jalen Graham, and along with, Deshaun Jameson, who obviously lost out on a lot of those return yards because of flags. But if Chris Conley can go out there, hold his own, do the same things that he did before, seems to be on a good level with both Trey Lance and Sam Darnold, he's going to see a lot of those guys again. Could be a big thing for him.
I like this. Jedi says, I'm going on Jordan Mason, 70 plus yards on 6 carries. All right, let's see it. He had a screen pass that he dropped, unfortunately, when Trey Lance was in last week. He had a ton of room and blockers in front of him that could have gone possibly to the house. I don't know, at least 25, 30 yards, but I'm rooting for Jordan Mason. He's a player, speaking of carving out a spot on the roster, he's a player that made his roster spot, locked it in last year in the preseason. So if I remember correctly, the 49ers went into last season with Trey Sermon, right? And they released him last year. So he took Trey Sermon's spot basically, and he hasn't looked back. He's looked really good. All right. Final score predictions. Guys, this is where I remind you to comment your final score predictions. Tweet them at us. If you're watching this after we've been live, drop it in the comments on YouTube. If you get it right, we'll send you some merch. Only one viewer has ever gotten it right, so we'd love to send somebody merch. Final score predictions. I'm going to go, I think the 49ers come back on this one after getting their ass whooped last week by the Raiders, who I'm just going to say clearly wanted that win, very, very clearly. And I'm going to say it's going to be a weird score, like 18-9 or something like that. What do you got?
Yeah, I think the 49ers are also going to come back in a big way and do some damage this game. I also think it's going to be a funky score. I'm going to say 26-19. I think they have to come out with more effort than they did last week, and I think it's clear that they probably got their asses chewed by the coaching staff. So they need to come out in a big way. I expect to see a lot of good from both of these quarterbacks, Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. So hopefully they can score a lot of points, get a lot of big plays, and move on from there. And then it's on to the dress rehearsal.
Okay, I love it. 49 Ways. What's up, man? Haven't seen you in a minute. He says, us fans say what we want, but the real shitty thing is not one current player. Never said anything in defense of Trey, only Mostert. What happened to I got your back? I mean, they don't have to, but still shitty. Technically, Javon Kinlaw came out in defense of Trey Lance. I assume you're talking about Michael Lombardi's quote.
No, no, but he said not one current player.
Is Javon Kinlaw not a current?
I mean, he ain't been playing much. That's what I'm looking for him to play this week. Listen, dude, I get it, but at the same time, there's a difference between a guy like Grant Cohn being in the building and antagonizing Javon Kinlaw and having Kinlaw respond and the players go about it than Michael Lombardi, who most of the players don't even know, probably don't even care about. They're trying to get ready for a season. And if you need, I don't know, I feel like it's an unrealistic expectation for the teammates to always have to come out in defense of somebody else. Like, it gets tiring, it gets old, right? But like Grant was there at the building antagonizing, and that makes it a different situation. Because for the most part, they really don't talk about what people say online. They really don't, what people are saying online. The fact that Grant was in the building and it became something like a kind of a physical altercation. And I think the fact that Javon actually, made an error in judgment and went on Grant's show and antagonized the situation kind of forced the players' hands. I don't think they want to talk about that shit at all. Because if you listen to them talk about the quarterbacks all off season, all they do is say complimentary stuff. And George Kittle said it on a show. He's like, what do you expect me to do? Come out here and say something bad about them?
Right.
It's all media training, right? But the fact of the matter is they shouldn't have to come out every single week. You guys need that from them. I don't think Trey needs that from them. I don't think Trey's that soft, to be honest.
I think Kinlaw even said it himself, like he doesn't pay attention to any of this shit. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but I agree with you. There's a difference. Yeah. There's a difference
49 ways. I totally understand where you're coming from. They do it for certain players. They did it for Kinlaw. Who else?
Yeah. And they did it for Kinlaw because, like you said, Matt, it was a physical altercation between Grant Cohn and Javon Kinlaw. They all came out in Kinlaw's defense. And not only that, but Kinlaw then went on Grant Cohn's podcast, totally blew up, shouting expletives at him. They were going back and forth. It was not a good look for Kinlaw. I just think that was different because of physical interaction who were involved.
He said, Jimmy, give me an example of what they say about Jimmy that wasn't like media training. Yeah. Because the things that they said about Jimmy are not the same things that they said coming into Kinlaw's defense. Go look up anything that they've ever said about Jimmy. Because at the same time, they're like, oh, yeah, Jimmy, blah, 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 blah. At the same time, they'd be like, oh, yeah, we can't get a hold of that guy in the offseason.
I mean, they were calling for Grant Cohn to lose his reporting credentials.
Exactly. Eric Armstead is like, this is the type of dude that we let in our locker room.
Right.
A guy that's just going to antagonize us all day. Completely different situation. And they had to speak up in defense of their teammates because of somebody else's actions forcing their hand.
Yeah.
But as far as like play on the field, why they got to answer for that shit? And by the way, what Michael Lombardi said, some of you got it twisted, and I don't think you understand what he's saying. All he's saying is that that quarterbacks are born, not made, and that Trey Lance, in his opinion, doesn't have it. And all y'all are talking about like acting like, he's being disrespectful to the family. I don't think that that's it at all. I think that your reading comprehension is disrespectful, to be honest.
I think that the fact that he mentioned his
and I
mom,
know you, I know you felt like that too. But that's like he could have said anything, right?
He could have worded it a lot better.
Dude, if it was clumsy, and I will give you that. All he had to say was like, "Hey, when Trey Lance was born, it obviously wasn't with like a football in his hand or something, right? When Trey Lance was picked up as a baby, didn't even have to say mama. If he just said when Trey Lance was picked up as a baby, didn't have the quarterback instincts. But I think a 3-letter word said everybody into a tizzy, and I think people need to relax. But I mean, that's social media, dude.
Yeah. If you're going to insult someone, just don't bring their mother into it in whatever way possible.
I don't think it was an insult. It's his opinion that he can't play quarterback.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's an insulting opinion. It's not like he was complimenting him.
Why is it insulting?
He's
personally
putting him down.
Insulting
He's clearly
or personally insulting or
either
professionally?
Way. Either way.
No, because there's a difference. We just talked about the difference between personal insult and being antagonistic to the person,
right?
And talking about somebody as a player. We just talked about that.
But he wasn't criticizing him throwing the football. He was criticizing him as a baby to make the connection that because he didn't have it then, he never will have it now.
Right. That's an allegory. Quarterbacks are born, not made.
Which is fine. All I'm saying is,
but that's not
he could have worded that. If he worded it the way you worded it.
I'm saying that it was clumsy. But disrespectful is going a touch too far. That's like, I mean, that's ice cream soft.
Yeah, I agree with Ian. It's a weird way of saying he's not natural quarterback.
Right. It is clumsily phrased, but I don't think the intent was to be personally disrespectful. He gave a professional opinion.
I agree with that.
The way that he worded it was not the best, and I will grant that. Yeah. But everybody acting like, oh shit, he's talking shit about his mom. No, he's not.
I don't think it was purpose. I don't think it was purposeful. I don't think that it was like an attack on Trey Lance or something. I just think you can be disrespectful without intending to.
Do you want to take this one? Because this makes no fucking sense to me.
Raymond,
how do you get to that point?
Says, dude, you can't see how deep goes deeper than football. It was a racist comment.
How?
I don't think there was any racism involved in this comment. Clearly, there are racist fans out there that.
Of course there are
hating on Trey Lance because he's a black.
Of course there are, but you can't just throw this shit out here and not qualify
this specific quarterback. This specific comment from Michael.
How do you say this? How do you say that this is exactly? And how do you just throw this out here with no backup? You just say it.
I think Lombardi's just a shitty communicator. To be honest with you, I mean he's shitty at a lot of things.
People are.
Yeah, shitty at a lot.
Nobody's ever said something that they didn't. Nobody's ever said anything that they didn't. They wish they couldn't take back and word differently. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
But so to go to that spot, listen, if everything is racist, then nothing is racist because it loses all meaning. If you're just going to throw that out there willy-nilly, then you're doing a disservice to actual instances of racism.
Yeah. All right. With that said, let's get into our chat pack question of the night.
Make it a positive one. I don't want to go out on a downer like that, man.
If you had to kill I'm just kidding. All right. Chat pack question of the
Jesus Christ, dude.
What is one field or profession that you never pursued, but you think you probably would have been good at?
I mean, honestly, like I'm in healthcare, but if I had to go back and do it again, before I got like too old or whatever, I probably would have. I joined the military because of 9/11. If I had to go over and do it again, I still think I would have served, but I would have gone in with like assurances. But I probably would have wanted to become a surgeon. So, yeah,
it's not that far off.
Like a trauma surgeon. No, it's not that far off. It's just by the time that I got through and I got to a certain point, it was an opportunity cost where debt would have been too much and started getting older. And I'm like, all right, I'm not trying to play this like resident BS where I work 100 hours a week and get paid like dog shit. So, I just kind of went with the happy medium. I get a nice living, I do what I can, but surgeon.
For me,
what about for
you? This is tough. For those who don't know, I have a very, very exciting job where I handle commercial escrow. It's not that exciting. But if I were to be in any other profession, I think I would be good at it. My father was in law enforcement. I know my dad's watching this right now, so shout out to Dad. Love you. He was San Jose PD, was corrections officer. I think I would be pretty good law enforcement. would be definitely interesting. My brother was military police with the Navy, and he's certainly considering a law enforcement career now still. But and shit, when I see that pay, I'm still considering it myself. But it's just not safe, man. It's not safe these days, unfortunately. I mean, it never was. It never was. But now I think the tensions are just too crazy. So, but I think I would have been good at it. I think I would have. If you guys want to answer in the chat, please feel free. What's a profession that you didn't enter, but you feel like you would have been good at it? 49 Way says, what's this year's motto? Quest for 6, Revenge Tour, never nickname the upcoming season. I agree with this. Please no.
Bro, this year's motto is for 49ers Twitter. Get your shit together.
Maybe I lost Matt.
No, I'm still here. Oh, Zach's got the smiley on. Is that just me now? Okay.
I hate this
Zach's
thing.
got his,
all right, I'm back.
Internet thing
reset.
again.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna get your shit together. That's the 49ers Twitter thing.
Yes.
Get your shit together.
Yes.
So I don't know, man. I just
win, baby. That's not taken, right?
Right. Anyway, yeah. So
last quarterback standing.
No, that was last season, dude. That was last season.
One quarterback, 17 games. There we go.
Dude, last year when they were rolling Josh Johnson out there and Josh Johnson got hurt and they were looking at Brock Purdy, Kyle was like, shit, I could probably
right.
I could do it. I could do it.
By the way, while we're talking about this, just real quick, and then we're going to wrap up the show. I thought it was interesting, not to rehash last year, not to rehash anything with Jimmy Garoppolo, but people were speculating whether or not he would have been ready for the Super Bowl had the 49ers made the Super Bowl. He apparently told Michael Silver he would have been ready had the 49ers made the Super Bowl. And there was some reporting that the 49ers basically felt like that was complete bullshit and that he was missing out on meetings towards the end of the season. And no matter, even if he was ready, they were fully intending to sign Phillip Rivers out of retirement to come and play for the 49ers in the Super Bowl had they have made it. Would have been crazy to see. And I think it really just is a perfect amalgamation or representation of Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo's relationship crumbling towards the end, which also led to the quote, no way possible did he see Jimmy Garoppolo
I was
returning.
just going to say that. There was a lot of heat when Kyle Shanahan said that, and it totally makes sense if that was the case. And it's just an unfortunate end to the situation. But I mean, it's on to Las Vegas for Jimmy Garoppolo, where he'll play 6 games before spraining something. Good luck to Raider, whatever you guys call yourselves. Nation, lordship, whatever. I don't know.
49ers fans are still fighting about it. We're not a nation. We're an empire, brother. We're not an empire. We're a nation. It's so funny to me.
Can I just say, too, I still hate the faithful. God, I hate that so much.
I mean, it's true because it's like an abused spouse. You're just rooting for.
They're not faithful to anything, though. I hate Purdy. I hate Trey. I hate Kyle. I hate John. I hate everybody. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it gets old, man.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for this show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This was an interesting.
Didn't Jimmy G's hat look like a bird shit on it? Nah, man. He just came from Crazy Horse number 3.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Are we going live tomorrow after the game?
I have a baseball game, maybe Sunday.
All right. We'll be live Sunday recapping. It's going to be late anyway. It's going to be like 9:00. We'll be live Sunday, probably early afternoonish. We'll post the details on Twitter. Follow us. 49ers Hive Twitter is on the handle, or excuse me, the screen on the handle. Our personal handles are on the screen. Go ahead, Matt.
If the only caveat, and Zach, you're kind of safe up there. Apparently, for the first time in like 100 years, Southern California is supposed to see a hurricane. So it's supposed to hit Sunday. So if it's hurricane weather, I might not be able to join, but we'll get there.
Okay, well, we'll have a show.
Hurricane Hillary.
Yeah, we'll have a show. It's just a matter of, I guess, who will be on it. And shout out to Mike. He couldn't make it tonight, but appreciate you, Mike, for tuning in and sharing the stream. Always supportive. Go follow Nothing But Niners. I'm sure you guys already do, but shout out to Mike. All right, let's get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Like I said, our personal handles are on the screen. 49ers Hive. We just topped 12,000 followers on Twitter, or X. I guess I got to change the logo now to an X. No longer a tweeter bird. I shouldn't have said that. All right, let's get out of here before I say more stupid shit. Matt, carry us out.
Absolutely. Listen, we want to see more effort from the boys. We want to see good quarterback play. No pick eights this time. All right, guys, let's avoid that. That's some Jimmy stuff. That being said, thank you as always for joining us, guys. Hopefully we get a little bit more clarification on what's going to be in terms of the quarterback situation going forward, and the team can come out of there. It doesn't count in the score column, but a win is always nice. So thank you for joining us as always. And until next time, go Niners.